Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Starry Skies and Sweet Smiles, or alternatively, Edgelords are tamed by the power of love and oblivious dorks in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 21, What the fuck, Claude? Hilda had been busy procuring materials for the activities, so she left organizing who went into what rooms to Claude. She let Marianne and Dimitri grab enough pillows and blankets for everyone, while the menu was left to Professor Byleth. Because damn, Professor Byleth had a knack for knowing everyone's favorite food. But, anyways, the guest list. Claude had done away with ideas like dividing people by gender or classes. Actually, his idea was probably terrible. He had divided the students into two groups, the people that were either dark or serious or brooding or tended to hide away their true feelings, and the people who were much more open with their feelings, tended to be optimistic and smiled much more. And this was terrible, because Claude was a human being, who, while intelligent and cunning, still made mistakes sometimes. In this case, he fucked up completely by not putting Edelgard in the Edgelord room. He put himself in the Edgelord room. It couldn't even be explained by him wanting a pair of eyes and ears in the Edgelord room. Lysithea was in there and she was easily bribed with sweets. Marianne was also in there. Dimitri was there too. There were so many spies he could have picked. No, Claude just genuinely thought that he belonged in the company of Hubert, Sylvain, and Felix, to name a few. Meanwhile, Edelgard was with Hilda, Ash, Annette, Raphael, Mercedes, and Laurence. That's absolutely correct. Claude genuinely thought that Laurence was a better fit for the Sunshine Room than him. What the fuck, Claude? This is a sentiment that will be repeated several times in this chapter, because, while Hilda had an actual sensible idea for activities in the Sunshine Room, neither Dimitri nor Marianne had any actual ideas for leisurely activities, making Claude have to come up with the plan. He had everyone sit in a circle, put a glass bottle in the middle, and said that whoever the bottle landed on would be given two options. When they were done with their choice, they would spin and present the choice to the next unlucky sap. That's right. His idea was spin the bottle, truth or dare. What the fuck, Claude? While Hilda was showing everyone how to make bracelets, using her bracelet for Edelgard as an example, Dorothea was daring Sylvain not to flirt with girls the entire night. While Petra, Casper, and Raphael were getting help from Ignatz, who picked up the instructions pretty quickly, Sylvain was attempting to get Dida to choose dare. Dida chose truth, making Sylvain sigh in disappointment. Cyril felt very confused and kinda exasperated with the antics of the Edgelord room, but Lady Rhea had ordered him to supervise and also participate. No one was able to get it through to his head that she was trying to get him to relax and also be safe. In essence, this was the Sunshine Room experience. Oh, look. One of the charms you gave me is a little crown. Hilda exclaimed excitedly, adding it to Edelgard's bracelet immediately. Thanks again for the gift, Your Majesty. There's no need to be so formal with me, Edelgard replied, carefully selecting beads for her bracelet. I'd like to be closer to you, so please, call me Edelgard. Sure. Hell yeah. Casper screamed. I'm gonna make the best damn bracelet ever. Am I not understanding? Is this a competition? Petra asked. You'd better hope not, Laurence said. If it were, my radiant skills would far outshine yours. I like your spirit. Raphael declared, accidentally ripping his bracelet string. Again. Ignatz gave him a patient smile, before handing Raphael a new one. Oh, wow, yours is coming along great, Leonie. Annette exclaimed in awe. You have deft hands. Mercedes declared. It's amazing. It's nothing, I just gotta be good with strings as an archer, you know. I don't think it's being an archer. Ash said, because he accidentally spilled some beads on the floor. Don't worry, Ash, you'll get the hang of it, Ingrid promised. What the Edgelord room experience was like, in contrast. The bottle landed on Ferdinand. Dorothea announced, overjoyed. Aha! I will not back down from any challenge you throw at me. I will select dare. Dida paused, because he was only really here for Dimitri. So, he picked an easy dare. Please sing something. As Dorothea was eagerly giggling, Bernadetta began crawling towards the door. Cyril immediately grabbed her by the wrist without even looking her way, because no one was escaping under his watch. Ferdinand sang beautifully and made jaws drop. Dorothea in particular was stunned. Linhard was asleep in the corner, but that was fine. Ferdinand's attempt to spin the bottle passed over Marianne, Lysithea, Dmitri, and Felix to land on Hubert. Hubert did not know why anyone would expect him to go through with this farce. And then Claude cleared his throat, and Hubert remembered. Claude was running this. Claude had to have had an angle, and Hubert would discover it. Nothing would get by him. So he took on a dare, because his lips would never betray Edelgard. Ferdinand dared Hubert to name one way he, as Ferdinand von Aegir, was superior to Edelgard. Hubert's reply was that the dare was asking him to lie. Dorothea cheered. Hubert offered Claude his spin as a symbol of Edelgard's goodwill, and also because he had no ideas for truths or dares. The bottle landed on Felix, who wanted no part in this whatsoever. He tried to leave, but Cyril would not let him escape. Cyril was the gatekeeper of hell, keeping them trapped in this cycle of torment. So Felix had to get it over with. Felix snapped. So, about Ash. A thrown pillow struck Claude in the face before he could finish that question. Claude's reply was to take that same pillow and smack Felix with it, declaring war. What the fuck, Claude? Hubert immediately aligned himself with Claude and went directly for Felix with a pillow, while the rest dissolved into chaos. Lysithea went mad with power and used gravity magic to gain the advantage. Dorothea went straight for striking the nobles down. Linhard was still asleep. Dida went for shielding Dmitri. Felix was struggling against Claude and Hubert's combined power. Sylvain tackled Claude into the blankets to save his friend. Bernadetta and Marianne were hiding in the corner, because Cyril wouldn't let them leave. It should be noted that the only person supervising them was Professor Byleth, because Seath was desperate to search more and dragged Professor Hanneman into another search of the monastery. And Professor Byleth had grown used to tiny loud disruptive creatures yelling around them, so they didn't even register anything being off as they prepared a lesson plan in Geralt's office. The lesson plan consisted of, how not to die to archers, hit them really hard before they can shoot you. So while complete pillow fight apocalypse meltdown was happening in the Edgelord room, the Sunshine room had finished up one round of bracelets. Mostly. Raphael had an artfully arranged set of amber-colored beads, while Raphael's messily tied bracelet was wrapped around Ignaz's wrist. Annette and Mercedes had made each other matching bracelets. Ash and Ingrid had worked together to find enough sword and horse charms for knightly bracelets. Leonie, Petra, and Lorenz wore their own bracelets with pride, while Caspar was still working on his. Edelgard had finished up one bracelet, and started one for Hubert. As she looked for enough black beads, she looked over at Hilda's careful selection of blue materials and asked, "Is it for Dmitri?" "Huh? No, it's for Marianne." "I already made a bracelet for Dmitri before," Hilda answered, normally. "Won't it make him sad if everyone received a bracelet but him?" Ingrid wondered, hoping to convince Hilda to make another one. "I'll make another bracelet for Dmitri to match the one I made for Didu," Mercedes declared, causing Ingrid to go, "Mercedes no," in her heart. "I will too," Annette added. "I'm gonna make enough bracelets for all my friends. Once I'm done with Cyril and Lysithea's, I'll totally make one for His Highness." "Me too," Ash exclaimed. Hilda couldn't help but smile at the sudden determination in the bracelet-making group. "I think he'll be fine," Hilda said. "Hwahahawaha." Bernadetta screamed when the Sunshine group charged into the room, carrying a fuckton of bracelets. Raphael immediately charged towards Bernadetta, handing her the bracelet he had made. "Sorry, sis, it's not the best, but I still made it for you," he said. "Oh. Thanks," Bernadetta said, taking the purple bracelet gently. "Sis." Claude echoed. Raphael chuckled awkwardly, quietly admitting that he kind of saw Bernadetta as another family member. Claude paused, because that wasn't a factor he predicted. So he quickly improvised. "Say, there's someone else you could give a bracelet to too, you know." "Huh? Who?" Claude pointed to Hubert, who was almost sobbing from Edelgard's gift. Raphael charged. This was the start of Hubert becoming very convinced that Raphael was also an incredible schemer and possibly even more dangerous than Claude because of his convincing acting, starting to stalk Raphael only to realize that Raphael's kindness was genuine, and feeling his fear and suspicion turn into something more akin to admiration, but that isn't really important right now. Casper also woke up the sleeping Linhard and made him wear the bracelet. It was too loose for Linhard, so while Casper wasn't looking, Linhard wrapped it around his wrist twice. Lorenz was very proud of his noble bracelet and showed it off to Ferdinand. And then gave it to Ferdinand, as he had a generous heart and could afford to do so. Petra gave her bracelet to Bernadetta too, because Raphael was very convincing when it came to, "Hey, please talk to my Bernadotte." Mercedes and Annette went around giving bracelets to Lysathea and Cyril and Didu happily. Ingrid practically threw a bracelet at Sylvain and Felix, then kindly gave another bracelet to Didu. Ash also gave a bracelet to Didu, Sylvain, and Felix, and also didn't notice Felix freaking out internally over Ash's gift. Dorothea outright blushed when Leonie presented her with a pretty bracelet. Leonie did it because Dorothea was really nice and kept complimenting her when she was training and she wanted to repay Dorothea's kindness. Hilda had 2 bracelets for Marianne, because Ingrid was actually kind of shy when it came to romance. Hilda said that it was from a secret admirer, which stunned Marianne. Marianne didn't realize that people could admire her. Of course, that was when Casper overheard and told Marianne that people would obviously admire someone with lots of good traits, because he had declared himself Marianne's self-esteem coach. White Claude was hastily correcting his mental chart to say that Raphael had actually adopted Bernadette and now. Edelgard tapped on his shoulder. Princess. I made you a bracelet, Edelgard said. You did? Claude asked, taken aback by Edelgard's gift. Because I want you by my side, Edelgard answered. Claude couldn't answer that, so instead, he held out his wrist to Edelgard. Edelgard tied the bracelet around his wrist in an incredibly intimate way. Edelgard took this as Claude agreeing to join her side. Claude was just really embarrassed and couldn't mentally deal with anything at the moment. Again, what the fuck, Claude? Hilda laughed, before presenting Claude with another bracelet. She had used letter charms to spell out best friends on his. Anyways, it was Dimitri time. The cries of Your Highness echoed in the room. Ash, Mercedes, Annette, Ingrid, along with the first one Hilda made, he had 5 bracelets by the end. And Didu asked Hilda to show him how to make the bracelets too, so Dimitri would soon have 6. Dimitri was stunned by the gifts. Thank you, Dimitri said with a smile. I'll treasure them. Hey, this is illegal, Claude said. What? Hilda said flatly. Claude then took Hilda's hand and lifted it into the air, directly above her head. He pointed at Hilda's wrist, causing her to think, what the fuck, Claude? Look at Hilda's wrist. No one has given Hilda a bracelet yet. That's too sad, Claude stated. I mean, she's done so much for everyone, so it's only right for a gift in return, you know. Everyone who knew Claude immediately knew that he was aiming for something here, so they just let him go on. Your Highness, you're the one who received the first bracelet she ever made. It's only right for you to be the one to make her a gift. You me? Dimitri asked, because, well, he did like the idea of giving Hilda a gift, but also, he would probably smash the beads into pieces and rip the twine. No, Dimitri already bought me a hair clip, it's fine. Don't worry. Hilda'll show you. I'll take care of everyone else, so take as much time in the bracelet making room as you need. Claude declared. He gave them absolutely no room to argue as he pretty much dragged them into the other room, shut the door behind them, and left them to their own devices. Hilda thought one thing with an absolutely murderous smile on her face. Claude, I'm going to kill you. Oh, so this is what you used to make the bracelets, Dimitri said. He was still emotionally recovering from people showing him affection, so he didn't have the mental capability to scream about being in a room alone with Hilda. Yeah, it is, Hilda answered with a normal smile. We've got string, some beads, and a bunch of scissors. Hilda took a careful series of deep breaths before saying, but really, you don't have to, you know? I still like the hair clip you bought me. No, I would like to, Dmitri said. Well, alright then. Let's start with measuring out how much string you need. As Hilda went about instructing him on how to make bracelets, Dmitri wondered. Were his actions really as selfless as wanting to repay her? Or did he just want to spend more time alone with her? It felt a bit greedy to want so much of her time. To want what, exactly? You're going to need the scissors now, so. The two of them both reached for the scissors at the same time, their hands touching accidentally. Hilda pulled her hand away instantly, apologizing with an awkward laugh. Dmitri paused at the sight of her embarrassed smile, and felt something click into place. Thankfully he didn't have to think about it much, because then there was a terrible scream that ripped through the area. Professor Byleth brought them all down to Professor Juritsaw's room, because that was where Professor Manuela said she would be if anything happened to her. At the sight of the other professor's unconscious body and the secret passage in Juritsaw's room, Professor Byleth ordered Didu and Mercedes to bring her to the infirmary, because they were the ones most used to dealing with injuries after all of Hilda and Dimitri's sparring matches. Professor, I'll accompany them, Edelgard said, only for Professor Byleth to shake their head. They needed as many fighters as possible, Professor Byleth said, so Edelgard couldn't leave. She couldn't even make the excuse of helping everyone grab their weapons, because she had been taught by Professor Byleth for 5 months. She knew that Professor Byleth just somehow carried an entire weapon store's worth of weapons on them at all times and could bring them out and put them away at will. She knew that the professor could even buy and sell items before battle if they wanted to, somehow. So Edelgard went along, sweating the entire way. Claude interpreted this as pre-battle nerves, and told her, don't worry. I'll keep an eye out for you. Which made things even worse. What the fuck, Claude? Chapter 22. The Flame Emperor wasn't there to tell the Death Knight to back off, because Claude was actually serious about that keeping an eye on you thing. Not that the Flame Emperor needed to show up. Professor Byleth's strategy for the Death Knight involved throwing 5 gambits at him in a row, then Lysithea with critical murder magic. It felt excessive, honestly. Like, they already outnumbered him so many times over. They already used gambits so he couldn't fight back. Was this really necessary? Weren't they just bullying him at this point? The group actually legitimately managed to knock out the Death Knight. It took Hubert accidentally setting part of the floor on fire in a last-ditch attack against some already fleeing enemy to buy enough time for the Death Knight to wake up. Behind everyone's back, Edelgard was trying to gesture to the Death Knight to just fucking run. Unfortunately for her, she was the 5th shortest person in the entire school, so the Death Knight couldn't see her. Professor Byleth immediately gestured for Lysithea again, and the Death Knight fled. Edelgard had very little idea how to react to any of that. Monica and Flame were recovered and carried back to the infirmary. Byleth decided to go and find Seath and tell him the good news, leaving the students to their own devices. So, naturally, they chose to. Good night, Linhard said, sitting down against the wall of the Edgelord room and beginning to snore. Hilda yawned, stretching her arms above her head. Yeah, everyone decided to sleep, still in the Edgelord room. Even when asked, hey, what was the point if they already solved the kidnapping, Claude's lackadaisical response was, it's fun. Claude stayed up a bit longer, because he was waiting for the chance to strike. When most of the Sunshine group was asleep, he made his move, going around and making things as terrible as possible. Ash was very sleepy and tiny enough to be carried, so he didn't even stir when Claude scooped him up and dumped him on top of Felix. Felix couldn't move, because Ash was on top of him. He was trapped, and he knew it, Claude knew it, and everyone knew it. It was terrible and incredible, and Felix's problems were more the fact that people could see him and also how would Ash react when he woke up. He would probably just apologize for accidentally rolling on top of Felix or something. Ingrid was mostly asleep, so she didn't register the weird warm thing that was just rolled next to her. In fact, she was grateful for this weird warm thing, because it was soft and nice to hold. The weird warm thing was Marianne. Ingrid would scream about this upon waking up. Linhard didn't even wake up as Claude dragged him next to Ignatz. Raphael didn't know what was happening, but he knew that Claude had told him that Hubert needed friends, so he attempted to wave Hubert over. Hubert did not trust that, hissed, and fled. This was the part where Hubert became suspicious of Raphael and swore to monitor him as well, but that's not important right now. Casper seemed to kick in his sleep a lot and Sylvain wasn't even asleep yet, so Claude refrained. Reluctantly. Sadly. He decided to go for someone else. Dorothea took one good look at the approaching Claude, realized she didn't like the mischievous look in his eyes, and tried to flee. But she tripped over Linhardt's leg and crashed into Leonie's chest. And she could not handle that in any way. She was not okay, especially when Leonie woke up and pinned the attempted attacker to the floor with a furious, and hot, glare. Claude was repressing his laughter as he nudged Laurence closer to Ferdinand with his foot. He didn't need to do anything with Annette and Lysithea and Cyril, because they had already fallen asleep together in a pile. Cute. Anyways, Mercedes was quietly chatting with Dudu, and you know what? That was fine. That was legitimately perfect. Thank you, you two, for being so cooperative, Claude said in his heart. And then Claude saw Hilda, sleeping on a pile of blankets. He looked over at Dimitri, who was sitting next to Dudu and Mercedes, then smirked. Gathering up Hilda along with her blankets, he went to the trio and pretended like he was just handing out blankets to folks who didn't have them, because they couldn't see Hilda in there. He set them all on Dimitri's lap, Hilda included. Dimitri's expression when he realized that Hilda was sleeping with her head on his lap was hilarious. Claude was so satisfied with his work. Edelgard had legitimately no idea what he was doing. But it must have been a scheme. Everything he did was a scheme. The next morning, there was so much screaming. So much. It was incredible. Well, probably not for the people who woke up from the screaming and didn't even realize the situation they were in. Good thing Hilda was the only one. So, a fishing tournament, huh, Hilda said plainly, looking over the pond from the balcony near the dining hall. It was the same place where she had watched the stars with Dimitri, she remembered, but she tried to put the thought away. I don't get it. Why are they wasting their time with this? Leonie asked irritably, glaring at Bylitha's back as they easily blew away the competition. Fish are so slimy and icky. Hilda groaned. And we have the battle of the lion and the eagle coming up. We ought to be training. Leonie exclaimed. But it's still the middle of Horsebow Moon, you know. Hilda replied. We have like, a month and a half to train. That's not enough, Leonie declared. I want us to be the ones holding the prize at the end. You just want to compete with Professor Byleth and the Black Eagles, don't you? Hilda asked. Leonie humphed at her, before storming into the dining hall. Hilda took that as a yes, and decided to follow after Leonie. Leonie was headed towards the training hall to, train, but her path took her through the dining hall. Dudu was in there, trying to help the chefs deal with the sudden influx of fish. Hilda greeted him, not even noticing how Leonie left her behind. Hello, Dudu replied. You doing okay? Hilda asked, looking at the copious amount of fish he was handling. Dudu nodded. Their conversation went as their conversations usually did, Hilda doing most of the talking with Dudu occasionally giving short answers. Except, since Hilda asked about the battle of the lion and the eagle, Dudu's response was this. The battle of the eagle and lion draws near. His Highness insists upon training well into the night. He has said it is nothing to worry about. But how could I not be concerned? Hilda took the news with a smile. She politely excused herself from the conversation and left the dining hall. Dudu had a sudden bad feeling about that. Dimitri wasn't even sure why he was surprised when Hilda kicked the spear out of his hands and carried him off again. He just knew that it was utterly improper for her to keep doing it, because that was how rumors started. When he brought up this fear to Hilda, though, her response was, hey, everyone's at the fishing tournament or training, right? No one will catch us. She did not bring up how people already gossiped about them. That was unnecessary information and they were better off forgetting it. You make it sound like we've done something wrong. We didn't. I'm just hanging out with you, after making sure that you're not overworking yourself, Hilda said. I mean, it's really bad for you to lose sleep. That'll just make you worse in battle. Dmitri sighed, because training was how he kept certain thoughts away. He was tugged out of his thoughts by the feeling of Hilda grabbing his hand. He stared in bewilderment as she started dragging him away from the training hall. "The sky's beautiful today," Hilda exclaimed joyfully. "It's too much of a waste to spend it all inside. I just want to sit and watch the clouds go by." Dmitri felt himself staring as she asked if he would like that. She took his silence as a no, then gasped at the sight of a familiar cat. Her warm hand let go of his as she went to pet the cat, and Dmitri. "Huh?" The next day, Hilda pulled him away from his training to make flower crowns with her. When she snuck her crown on his head, Dmitri felt that same strange feeling, but his mood became even weirder when Hilda went to give her other crowns to other people. Then, the next day, it was cooking with Dudu. Then it was taking a walk with her to admire the scenery, chatting with the people they met along the way. Each day, Hilda made sure he didn't work himself too hard. Each day, she sent him off to his room when it got too late, and each day, Dmitri felt lost and confused when it came to that feeling. Meanwhile, Hilda couldn't hide it from herself anymore. She liked Dmitri. She held his hand, she had fun with him, and she really, really liked him. This was a problem, because fucking hell, one day Dmitri would realize that she had been trying to do all the things you did with someone you dated while pretending that this was how she acted with friends, and there was no way that could end well. Hilda decided, hey, time to talk more with other friends. It was because of this that she learned that Claude had been concerned recently. "Monica's been sticking really close to Edelgard," Claude stated. "I know she's, just recovered from being a kidnapping victim and all, but she keeps showing up out of nowhere when I'm with Edelgard. It's like she's got a tracking spell on her or something." Hilda nodded along, understanding what he meant. "Yeah, her personality's different too. She seems happier, but like she's faking it. Like she doesn't want anyone to worry over her, so she's making a show of how she's totally fine," Hilda said. "Maybe she's clinging so hard to Edelgard because she's the only friend she made so far." Claude's eyes widened. "So, if we can help Monica make more friends, she'll be recovering better, and she could take some time away from Edelgard," Claude exclaimed, before laughing. "Oh, Hilda, whatever would I do without you?" Hilda laughed in return, eager to listen to his idea. Chapter 23. Things went downhill very, very quickly. See, Claude had attempted to approach Monica and Edelgard in the courtyard, with Hilda and Dmitri on standby to help with his plan. Unfortunately, Monica snapped at Claude, screamed that Claude was just trying to take Edel away from her, and called him a thief. Claude figured that he had accidentally stepped on some sort of button for Monica, and was about to apologize, when Monica grinned at the size of the crowd drawn to the loud screaming. Edelgard had been getting too close to others, lately. It was time to remind her of her place. Monica turned to Edelgard and knelt, chanting, "O Sunbringer goddess, O herald of tomorrows. Might I be the blade that strikes down your sorrows. Until the end of days, in the dead of night. Let me fill our foes with fright." Edelgard stepped back in confusion, as Monica transformed. Her skin turned an inhumanly pale shade, her eye became red with a black mark running over it, her clothes became like 3 scorpion's stingers, and in her hand, she held a gleaming knife. She charged at Claude. Claude barely ducked under her blade in time. Students rushed to escape. Hilda and Dmitri had to fight the flow of the crowd, trying to help. "This is what you get for interfering," the girl who had once been Monica screamed, attempting to slash Claude in half. "What the hell are you?" Claude demanded, dodging to the side. His answer was a calm smile. "I'm just one of Edel's loyal servants, you know." Edelgard froze as she realized just what Kronia wanted. She wanted to drive a wedge between Edelgard and all the friends, all the allies she had made. "Stop it. I have no part in this," Edelgard exclaimed, pulling out her own dagger. She rushed to stab Kronia in the back, only for the attack to be deflected by one of her scorpion-like stingers. Kronia laughed. She kept advancing straight for Claude, knowing he couldn't dodge forever. Edelgard's attacks were useless against Kronia's defenses. And then, "Dmitri! Now!" Hilda ordered. Dmitri threw Hilda into the air. Kronya had to dodge the falling strike. Even though Hilda was barehanded, just one punch was enough for her to create a crater in the ground. "You can't take on all of us," Hilda exclaimed confidently. Is that so?" Kronya asked with a serene smile. "Oh well. Just one is enough for now." She threw her knife at the exhausted Claude. Claude couldn't move as fast as he was before, and the knife slashed him in the side. 3 people shrieked Claude's name in horror as he crumpled to the ground. Kronya disappeared into thin air, and "Get Marianne, Mercedes, anyone," Edelgard ordered quickly. Hilda and Dmitri set out in a rush, hoping that the healers weren't too far from the area. Edelgard's breathing was rapid as she knelt by Claude's side. The scent of blood poisoned the air. Edelgard didn't even notice the blood beginning to stain her clothes as she cradled Claude close. Her hands automatically went to wrap up his cut, using her cloak to make an improvised bandage. Dark stains quickly emerged on the bright red cloth. She knew that blade. Kronya had 2, one she used to kill, and one she used to torture. The one Kronya had used was the latter. The cut wasn't deep or large enough to kill Claude, but the blade had been coated in poison. It wouldn't kill him, but the pain he would endure. Even if someone were to heal the cut, the poison would remain in his body. As long as the poison remained in his body, he would die. He needed more than magic. He needed an antidote. "Hey, don't look so anxious, princess," he urged her, his voice breathless. "I'll be fine." "Don't talk," Edelgard ordered. Her mind was flitting between options, all the courses of action she could take. She could carry him to the infirmary, but too far. She could, no, waiting would take too long, but she hadn't studied healing magic the same way she had studied reason magic. Claude let out a light laugh, hoping to calm her nerves, before wincing. "Ack, can't laugh," he muttered to himself. "Just stay quiet." Edelgard snapped. "Don't worry, Edelgard," Claude said, struggling to make his breathing regular again. "I won't die. I can't die." As if the blood loss loosened his tongue, Claude kept talking. "I can't die," he repeated, "not until I've torn down every system that keeps the world divided." Edelgard's eyes widened at those words. That was when Hilda and Dmitri returned, Marianne, Mercedes, and Linhard following close behind. With the 3 healers, Claude's cut healed easily, but Edelgard felt her heart grow heavy as she realized that it wasn't enough. It couldn't be enough. Claude fell unconscious just as Edelgard lifted him into her arms. "I'm bringing him to the infirmary," Edelgard announced, trying to keep her voice stoic. Her heart was racing as she moved, careful not to move Claude too much. It just wasn't right for Claude to be so lifeless. Her throat constricted, and Edelgard realized that she was scared. For Claude's sake. The 3 healers had decided to follow after Edelgard, since they could report what they saw to Manuela. Dmitri and Hilda were left outside the infirmary, waiting to be told that they could enter. And the waiting was getting to them. "Damn it!" Dmitri swore, driving his fist into the nearest wall. Dmitri! Hilda's eyes were wide with shock at the sight. Dmitri grimaced, his body tense with anger. "I'm sorry," Dmitri told her. "I try and suppress my emotions, but this time." "You're worried for Claude, aren't you?" Hilda asked. Dmitri's eyes were dark as he said, "I cannot bear the thought of failing to protect another person dear to me." Hilda felt an indescribable sense of anxiety well up in her chest. "I still remember the screams of those who died that day," Dmitri admitted. "My father, my stepmother, everyone, their last moments were excruciating. I can't let myself fail again. I can't disappoint anyone else." Hilda's heart ached as she wondered if this was the pain that Dmitri had been carrying all this time. "Well, all that matters is that Claude is alive right now," Dmitri said. And that was what did it. Hilda began to cry. Because if she had been faster, Claude wouldn't have gotten hurt at all. If she had been smarter, she wouldn't have told Claude to deal with Monica in the first place. If she had been better, she would know what to say to help Dmitri. If she didn't keep screwing up, everything could have been avoided in the first place. Dmitri's eyes widened at Hilda's sudden tears. Hilda. Hilda wiped her face with her fists, but her tears wouldn't stop. I'm sorry. Hilda said, a shaky smile on her face. I really messed up this time. Her smile wavered as more tears came. Dmitri didn't know how to address this situation, but then, Hilda hugged him. After a moment of stunned pause, he wrapped his arms around her, trying to silently comfort her as she cried into his chest. It seemed like an eternity had passed before Hilda's tremors stopped. Hilda pushed away from Dmitri, her eyes bitter as her mouth smiled. Are you feeling all right? Dmitri asked. Yeah, Hilda said, a hiccup punctuating her words. Thank you. She still felt like she was going to burst into tears again, but instead, she wiped her tears one last time. Dmitri, thanks for being here, Hilda said earnestly. If you ever want me to be there for you, I'll be there, okay? All you have to do is ask. Dmitri seemed taken aback by her sudden offer, before smiling. Thank you, Hilda. Chapter 24. Manuela was confused. From every possible angle, the knife had only made a small cut in Claude's side. The cut on its own couldn't possibly kill him. Even if it were coated in poison, only a small amount would have entered his system. So, why had Claude been unconscious for 4 days? The infirmary was deadly quiet as Manuela worked. Sometimes, she had to check if Claude was actually breathing. Wake up soon, all right? Manuela asked as she wiped sweat off of Claude's face with a cloth. Her eyes immediately went to the pile of cards and flowers on the table, the girl having fallen asleep in the chair by his bed. Your friends are waiting for you. Manuela put a blanket over Edelgard as she slept, careful not to disturb the princess. She left to grab another bottle of rubbing alcohol, not realizing that Edelgard was awake. Just a little bit longer. Edelgard whispered to Claude. Endure it just a little bit longer, Claude. No way. Is Edelgard? Monica knelt to her before attacking. Scary. Hilda's fingers twitched as she overheard the noise in the dining hall. Edelgard and Hubert had all but disappeared in the days after Claude's injury. There was no one to defend Edelgard from the new rumors swirling about. Hilda hated it. Because, on some level, the rumors had a point. It was suspicious that Monica knelt to Edelgard, chanted an entire hymn to her, before attacking. It was suspicious how she spent so much time with Edelgard, it was suspicious how she called herself Edelgard's loyal servant, everything about the situation was suspicious. And Hilda, well, when she thought on it, she didn't know Edelgard that well. Edelgard was polite, witty, and intelligent, but could Hilda really say she knew anything else about her? Hilda. No. You know what, screw that. Hilda decided. I don't care if Edelgard might be suspicious. If she's someone I can't trust, I'll just work at it until I can. Because Hilda was someone who loved and loved deeply, once someone won her loyalty, she would fight for them. With the same fury she felt whenever someone said something bad about Marianne because of her crest, Hilda slammed her fist into the table and stood. Hey! Hilda exclaimed loudly, the yell combined with the table's cracking noises bringing everyone's attention to her. All of you, saying bad things about Edelgard, and doubting her, you can all shut up. She gritted her teeth as she kept going. I might not know Edelgard all that well, but I know what I saw. She held him close and teared up over his injury. She was desperate and panicking because of it. If there's one thing I know, it's that she would never want to hurt him. That's why. Without a single trace of doubt in her voice. I haven't lost faith in Edelgard. And none of you should lose faith in her either. Hilda turned and stormed out of the dining hall, leaving everyone's stunned eyes behind. She wound up sitting in the gazebo, body curled up with her head in her arms. Hilda looked up at the sound of footsteps, seeing Dmitri approaching with a concerned expression. Might I sit with you? He asked after a moment's hesitation. Okay. Hilda didn't look up as Dmitri sat next to her, feeling his warmth by her side. I must have really made a mess. I hope I didn't break the table, Hilda said casually. Don't worry. You didn't, Dmitri answered. Hilda hummed in response, her expression darkening. She wanted to ask if Dmitri doubted in Edelgard, if he thought she had done the right thing, but instead, she wound up leaning against Dmitri, resting her head on his shoulder. "There's no way Claude could die now," Hilda stated, her tone blank. A sigh left her lips, then she added, "When he wakes up, he'd be furious if people were bad-mouthing the girl he likes, right?" "He certainly wouldn't enjoy that," Dmitri answered. "It's good that you told them off." Hilda felt a small bit of relief creep into her heart. The question she couldn't ask before came to her lips so easily after that. "Do you trust Edelgard?" "I certainly have difficulty believing that she intended for that incident to happen," Dmitri answered. "When it comes down to it, when Edelgard wants to share what she knows about that girl, I'd like to hear her out." "Yeah. It'd be nice if she told us," Hilda said. "I have faith that she will," Dmitri stated. "You defended her so bravely, after all." "Ha, it's not really bravery," Hilda replied. "I just don't want to regret anything. If we drifted apart because I couldn't speak up for her, well, I'd hate that." Hilda let out another sigh. "I don't want to regret meeting or befriending anyone here. I won't let our memories of this place be sad ones," Hilda declared, a smile coming onto her face. She suddenly knew just what to do. She pushed herself off the gazebo floor and offered Dmitri a hand up. Dmitri returned her grin as he took her hand. "You wanna bake cookies with me?" Hilda asked as she pulled Dmitri into a standing position. "I'm hoping the smell will wake Claude up." "If you don't mind, I'd be glad to help," Dmitri answered. "Glad to have you, then," Hilda replied. The door to the infirmary opened, before being carefully shut. Edelgard didn't seem surprised. "Do you have it?" she asked. "I wouldn't have returned if I weren't successful," Hubert answered, handing over a small corked bottle. With this, Claude's suffering will be over, Edelgard thought. Kronya's poison was excruciating, but not in the traditional sense. It put its victims into a deep, deep sleep, where their dreams were tormented by their worst fears and most dreadful memories. Edelgard remembered her bragging that she could drive someone insane with it, if she felt like it. But Edelgard wouldn't let Claude suffer any longer. She uncorked the bottle and prepared herself to pour the antidote into his mouth. And then the door slammed open. "We brought cookies," Hilda announced as Edelgard accidentally dropped the entire bottle into Claude's mouth. "Oh, hello, Edelgard," Hubert, Dmitri greeted, just as Claude sat up and started coughing. The bottle flew out of his throat and onto the floor. "Shit, that was not pleasant," Claude grumbled, rubbing at his neck with a tired expression. "Huh? Did the smell of the cookies actually wake him up?" Hilda asked in awe. "Smell?" Claude echoed, before smiling. "Oh, if you mean the smell of something burnt, of course." "Hey, Claude. They're not burnt," Hilda exclaimed. "They're slightly burnt," Dmitri admitted. Kidding," Claude said with a laugh. Edelgard gulped at the sight. She had absolutely no idea if Claude woke up because he accidentally drank some of the antidote or if he was just operating on survival instincts when the foreign object entered his throat, but he was awake now. And that was enough. It should be noted that, almost immediately after, every single one of the other students broke into the infirmary to check on Claude. Even Felix. Professor Byleth just let all of them skip class, since hey, it'd just be cruel to take that little celebration away from them. Chapter 25. Claude had been forced to take time to rest and ordered to avoid too much strenuous activity. This absolutely would not stop him, though. He spent all his time in the library, tearing through one section in particular. The section on the history of crests. Tomash, no, Solon was worried. Kronya was a fool who exposed herself out of idiocy, but his disguise and acting had been perfect. Claude couldn't have possibly seen through him. But, every time Claude called him over to ask about some part of some tome, he grew, not quite anxious, but bothered. This child could not possibly hurt him, but he was growing to be an annoyance. Perhaps he should have a relapse, Solon thought, just as another voice pierced the library's silence. "Claude, don't you think that's enough for today?" Edelgard asked as she entered the library. "Ah, princess. Great to see you," Claude exclaimed with a grin. You mind helping me look for? No, Edelgard said outright. Go back to the infirmary and sleep. Ah, come on, Edelgard, I've been cooped up in there all day, can you blame me for wanting to spend more time investigating something interesting? He asked. He laughed and added that it would be an insult to all of Tamash's help to stop before finding at least one lead. Solon sincerely wondered if he could get away with poisoning a book Claude would read. That was when Edelgard spoke up. Claude. I will not let anyone else harm you. Not even you and your own stubbornness, she declared. There was a moment of silence as Claude's eyes widened. You needn't do all this alone, Edelgard added, her eyes flitting towards Solon, before she redirected her gaze back at Claude. Can't you ask one of your friends to simply deliver books to the infirmary for you? Or study alongside someone? Claude didn't even get to say anything to that, because Edelgard went on. You ought to rely on other people more, she said, because she was not letting him stay in a room alone with Solon ever. Rely on me a bit more. Claude relaxed a bit, giving her a carefree grin. All right, I guess I've been reading a bit too long anyways. Shall we go, princess? Edelgard smiled, letting Claude leave first. Behind his back, she glared at Solon. Solon couldn't help but feel frustrated. Dmitri took a sip of his tea. Well? Hilda asked with an excited grin. You like it? I do enjoy it, Dmitri answered. Is this chamomile? How did you know I preferred this blend? Hilda thought to how she attempted to bribe Professor Byleth with fishing bait in exchange for information on what teas tended to help people sleep better. That attempt completely fell through when the professor just outright told her that Dmitri liked chamomile, that it helped with calming people down and sleeping, and that they didn't need the bait. They even gave her the tea leaves. Lucky guess. Hilda offered. Then, might I take a guess at what sorts of tea you would like? Dmitri asked. Sure, go ahead. Dmitri paused to think. He remembered how Hilda liked making sweets with Annette, Didu, and Mercedes. Something sweet, he started off with, before remembering how Hilda always tried to help him relax, and something that would help you feel calm and refreshed. No way, how well do you know me? Hilda gasped in awe. That's totally right. I hadn't even guessed what your favorite type was yet. Dmitri noted, making Hilda laugh. That's because I don't like any one of them in particular, Hilda said. I just like most teas that hit those two boxes, so you're right on the money. I see. It makes me happy that we've gotten to know each other so well, Dmitri said. Hilda smiled, her cheeks rosy. Hey, I've gotten new recommendations for tea types, though. Lysathea really likes crescent moon tea, so I've been curious. Wanna try it together next time? Hilda asked. I'd be happy to, Dmitri answered. Would you like to work on some revision work while we drink tea, then? You're always so responsible. If I read over all my books as much as you did, my eyes would fall out. Hilda exclaimed, though her bright smile gave away her joking jabs. Dmitri would have said something about how he was simply doing what was expected of him, when he noticed Tamash walking by, grumbling with his back slouched. I wonder, is Tamash all right? Dmitri asked when Tamash had passed by. He seemed irritated. Oh, that's probably because of Claude, Hilda said casually. He just woke up, and he's already back to his nonsense. He's been tearing apart the library, looking for a book with both crests and art to make Linhard and Ignatz talk to each other more. She took a sip of her tea, before giving Dmitri a grin. Really makes you feel like things are back to normal around here, huh? Chapter 26. There was a giant fucking glowing batch of fish bait in the pond, attracting fish in hordes. Professor Byleth hadn't even bothered asking why such a thing was happening. They were just taking advantage of it heartily. Professor Hanneman's glasses had been stolen, thanks Ash, and handed to a cat, which was then lured into napping in Bernadetta's room with several other cats. Raphael and Dida were both distracting the kitchen staff so Annette could make the biggest explosion possible. Mercedes was politely chatting with Flane about healing magic. Ignatz and Ingrid's attempt at a painting of Ciro's had been sent directly to Ria, who was stunned and baffled by the image. She had been reduced to desperately trying to ask them if Cyros was really that scary. Lysithea was teaching Cyril how to read in her room. Seath, however, had been locked in a closet with Manuela. This was an accident, because the plan was supposed to be that Seath would also be fishing. Marianne accidentally tripped and locked them in while trying to do something else entirely. She couldn't open the door either, so she was looking for the keys. See, the reason there was a plan in the first place was that Edelgard asked to be able to speak to Claude alone, with all the faculty distracted to give them complete privacy. The only possible reasons someone could make a request like that were murder attempts, secret confessions, or sex. Hilda refused to disclose which one she interpreted it as, but she took the request deadly seriously. So, to distract Catherine, Shamir, Eloise, and Geralt. Well, to be honest, the sparring match wasn't entirely her idea. It was mostly Felix's. Hilda's idea involved more theft and also cuteness. Basically, there was a sparring match between two teams. Team 1 was Hilda and Dimitri. Team 2 was everyone else. Except a napping Linhard. It should be noted that Hilda obviously objected to this, because what the fuck. However, Byleth was busy and the walls weren't reinforced yet, so Hilda and Dimitri could not be on separate teams. But the others said that the only way Team 2 could ever possibly win was if it consisted of literally everyone else available. Except Linhard. Hilda couldn't argue against that, because Dimitri was incredibly strong and skilled. The sparring match was incredibly frantic and panicked, which interested the knights immensely. Hilda struck down spears aiming for Dimitri, while he stabbed at any swords looking to disarm her. It was kind of stunning to Hilda just how well they worked together. Like, when she looked back on the carnage they had caused. Lorenz's lance was snapped in half, Petra's blade was sent into the floor, Sylvain himself was thrown towards the benches, Dorothea's sword was sticking out of the ceiling. Hilda snapped back to attention at Dimitri's wordless warning, parrying Ferdinand's lance attack. Caspar tried to take the chance to strike, only for Dimitri shield her with his own lance. Caspar's quick punches forced Dimitri on the defensive, so Hilda dropped her axe and tackled him. She accidentally tackled him into Leone, taking them both out. Dimitri moved to force Ferdinand's spear downwards, stomping the spear point into the floor. Felix charged into the fray, grabbing Petra's sword from the floor to make up for the wooden one Hilda broke by accident. "Get down!" Hilda ordered. Dimitri immediately ducked, letting her use his back as a springboard to jump at Felix. Felix's swing didn't stop, Hilda gritting her teeth as the practice sword caught her in the collar. She took care of the swordsman with bare-fisted brawling. Hilda and Dimitri were back-to-back, both their chests heaving for breath as they waited for the next attack. "Congrats," Catherine declared, stunning them both. That sure was impressive. As the other knights praised them, Hilda felt confused. She looked around and saw that no one was standing up against them. "We won?" Hilda asked Dimitri. "Incredible. You fought well." Dimitri's earnest smile fell way to a shocked expression when he turned to face Hilda fully. Hilda looked down at herself to see what could have stunned him so bad, before seeing that Felix's attack had torn her sleeve clean off, exposing a surprisingly muscular arm. "I'll need to grab a change of clothes," Hilda muttered to herself, just as Dimitri offered her his cloak. "Huh. Just take it," Dimitri said, face red. "Oh. Thanks, Dimitri," Hilda said, wrapping the cloak over her shoulders again. Eloise immediately tried to ask if they were something, but Gerald silenced him before he could finish the question. Hubert was guarding the door as Edelgard sat inside the infirmary. Dark magic dampened the sound of their conversation to the world outside. Edelgard was finally alone with Claude, everyone who could overhear safely distracted and away from the area. She could finally ask him what he would think if he heard of her plans. She had attempted to be at least a little subtle, not outright saying that she was the one in charge of this supposed faction that knew a dark secret about the church and was planning on overthrowing it. Claude's answer. "Okay, I can see why someone would want to overthrow the church," Claude admitted, "but can this not involve stabbing people?" "Huh. I mean, if this dark secret is so bad, just expose it to the world, make the church lose their credibility and pile on the other reasons to overthrow them." You'll meet some opposition from nobles who love their crests and all, but there are obviously some who would pounce on the chance to stop paying the place. Plus, there are already people looking for the church's weaknesses, but they're just terrible at it. No, wait, but there's no other choice but war. No, there isn't. Claude replied. There is a lot of other options. Just give the church's enemies an actual fighting stance and let them tear each other apart. Or get Lady Rhea to step down and take advantage of the chaos of her not having a successor. Or just reform the church. Or replace Lady Rhea with someone you can trust. Edelgard couldn't even muster up a reply to that. Claude just went on, saying, why would anyone choose a war of all the options, anyways? Like, why are you so determined to fight? Are you just really bloodthirsty or something? Because that would backfire really, really badly. Like, if you go so far, justifying your actions by saying it'll all work out in the end, won't other people just think you're a monster? You'll have to subjugate the would-be allies who agree with your goals but object to your methods. Then when you've won, the people you stepped on the way to your goals will rebel against you for your crimes. They'll think of you as no better than the oppressors you were fighting against in the first place. Claude finally managed to run out of steam and trail off. Edelgard literally had no idea what to say to anything he had told her. Meanwhile, Claude was thinking something along the lines of, hey, I respect that you're trying to tell me about the guys who stabbed me without tipping anyone off, but Edelgard, can you please maybe not sound sympathetic to their goals? Please? Because, you know, they stabbed me. There was a very pensive silence in the room. Chapter 27. Edelgard seems kinda stressed out lately. Hilda noted, sitting in the reception hall with Marianne and Leonie. Though, I guess it makes sense. Claude just recovered, and yet he's already determined to participate in the battle. I wish Claude would just rest. Marianne said softly. Does he think that the rest of us are so weak that we'll lose without him or something? Leonie demanded in annoyance, though Hilda knew she was just worried. All he said was something like, it's not right for you guys to fight without your house leader, or whatever, Hilda said simply. Maybe we should just knock him out and leave him in the infirmary, Leonie said. Please do not do that, Marianne asked. We could bribe him with food, Leonie suggested. I'm pretty sure half the reason he's so determined to fight is because the winner gets a feast. Didn't the house leaders already agree to share the food no matter who wins? Hilda asked, exasperated. It's not about the prizes. Well, not just about the prizes. It's also about managing to beat the other two houses, Claude said, showing up out of nowhere. Marianne screamed, Leonie flinched, and Hilda didn't really care. Out of bed already? Hilda asked. Surprisingly, it turns out that, after days of staying in bed, you tend to want to move around, Claude answered. Wanna head to the training hall with me? No thanks, I've had enough of fighting, Hilda said. I'm in desperate need of some beauty sleep, so could you possibly let me sit out the next fight? You don't need a delicate flower like me, right? Leonie felt her eyes almost pop out of her skull. Are you joking? You and His Highness beat up 9 other people yesterday. Oh, no, that was entirely Dimitri. I didn't do much except cheer him on. How selective is your memory? Leonie demanded. If Hilda is sitting out, might I do the same? Sure. We can chat on the benches together. Neither of you are sitting out, Claude declared. We are going to charge into the fray like the beautiful, terrifying deer that we are. So much work. But. And then Claude decided to resort to bribery. Marianne, I have horse treats and cat toys for you if you participate, Claude said flatly. Marianne paused. Are they healthy? Yes. The toys aren't small enough to swallow. No, and they don't break easily either. What kind of treats and toys? Sugar cubes, cat wands, and a fake mouse. Marianne reluctantly agreed. Now, Claude turned to Hilda, because Leonie was already going to do the thing anyways. Now, Hilda wanted to not work, so he couldn't exactly use this to make her work. So he just cupped his hands around his mouth and yelled. Hey Dimitri! You looking forward to getting wiped out? Claude, what the hell are you doing? Hilda demanded. And then Dmitri actually stood up from his table with his friends and walked over. Ash and Ingrid looked over with matching grins. Claude gave them a little thumbs up and a wink. I am looking forward to facing the Golden Deer in battle, Dmitri said, though, I'm not too sure we're going to be the ones losing. Hilda was internally screaming, because what the fuck, Claude. On the outside though, she smiled. Incredible confidence. Have fun, then. Hilda said. No, stop that, Leonie told her. Quit talking like you won't be there. Claude exclaimed, casually smirking. Aren't you excited to go toe-to-toe with Dmitri without worrying about silly things like walls and property damage? Claude, you sick son of a bitch. Well, I don't want to hurt my friend, S. Hilda tacked on the S awkwardly, scrambling to find an excuse. I mean, who decided that we ought to fight against each other in the first place? Wouldn't it be so much better if we were to work together? Or something. Marianne nodded frantically. I don't want to fight against my friends either. She exclaimed. I would really rather drink tea or groom horses together. Huh. Leonie replied, confused. Well, the girl in the room next to mine, Ingrid, sometimes we go and groom our horses together and talk. I don't know if she thinks of me as a friend, but I wouldn't want to hurt her, Marianne explained. She thinks of you as a friend, I assure you, Dmitri stated, because not even he was immune to the wingman phenomenon. Hey, why don't you tell her that, perhaps over a cup of tea? Claude offered, pouncing on the wingman chance. Really? But, wouldn't I just be a bother? No, not at all. In fact, Ingrid would love it. Yeah, it seems like she's rather fond of you. Hilda tried to use this chance to escape, only for Leonie to grab her by the wrist and pull her back into her seat. When Hilda gave her a sad, betrayed pout, Leonie's response was to whisper, no. You are going to be convinced to fight, because our other option for this absolute warrior man is to snipe him with everyone else. Why don't you just do that, then? Hilda asked. You want us to be wiped out by the Black Eagles while we're focusing on Dmitri. It doesn't matter who wins. Because we're getting that feast anyways. Hilda pointed out, again. Marianne then left to go ask Ingrid to a tea party, sufficiently motivated by Claude and Dmitri. She would end up retreating very soon because Ingrid was with actual people and Marianne didn't have the confidence to ask someone in front of an audience, but then Ingrid would chase after her and ask what was wrong dramatically, which would lead to Marianne blurting out that she wanted to spend time together dramatically and sparklingly. Anyways. With Marianne gone and doing her best, Claude refocused his attempts on getting Hilda to participate. Hey, Your Highness, mind making a wager with me? Claude asked quietly, while Hilda was distracted from her whispered conversation with Leonie. Huh. I'll tell you the details later, Claude said. Just be sure to tell Hilda you're looking forward to facing off against her, okay? Is what he said, but I'm very sure that this is part of a scheme, Dmitri told Hilda bluntly as they sat together at a tea table. They had decided to take a break from studying to try crescent moon tea, bringing light-hearted conversation with it. Yep, it's a scheme all right, Hilda said in return, taking an irritated sip from her cup. He's just trying to make sure I don't sit out of the Battle of the Eagle and the Lion, so it's fine. You're going to sit out? Dmitri asked. Hilda froze as she stared at Dmitri's disappointed puppy eyes. Oh no. Oh goddess. This was part of Claude's plan. He planned for their casual trusting friendship. Well, it's work, Hilda said. And if people think I'm super reliable, then they might wind up disappointed in me, so I'd rather just not give them any expectations. Even though you're so skilled. Even a perfect person can mess up, Hilda stated. Even someone much better than me can make mistakes, so. Even if you make mistakes, people will appreciate your effort. Hilda's eyes widened at those words. Isn't that what you told me? Dmitri asked. He didn't seem to notice how Hilda blushed as he went on. The people who put their faith in you, they trust you because you've proven your strength and skill to them, Dmitri told her. It seems rather difficult to disappoint people when they simply want you to do as you've always done. There was a moment of silence, before Dmitri added, I apologize. I don't know the best way to address this, but I'll do my best to help you. No, Hilda said, cutting off his words. She turned her head back towards him with a bright smile and rosy cheeks, saying, You already made me feel better, you know? Thank you, Dmitri. Dmitri paused at the sight of her smile, before telling her he was glad he managed to help. Hilda participated in the battle, but that wasn't enough to keep Professor Byleth and the Black Eagles from utterly destroying everyone. But somehow, she didn't feel too bad about the loss, when everyone was happy and smiling together. Chapter 28, Bonus, Battle Dialogue. Hilda vs. Dmitri. Hilda, oh, Dmitri, isn't there any way you could go easy on me? Please? Dmitri, I'm afraid not. That would be an insult to you and your strength. Hilda, ahaha, thought you'd say something like that. Dmitri, I'll be taking this fight seriously, so don't hold anything back. Hilda vs. Didu. Didu, I apologize in advance. Hilda, no worries. It's just a mock battle, right? I'll forgive you if you don't hit me too hard. Didu, you misunderstand. I apologize for taking up the time you could be spending fighting His Highness. Didu, he's been looking forward to facing you. Hilda, huh? What? What? Hubert vs. Hilda/Claude, dialogue same for both. Hubert, you're a dangerous opponent. No wonder Her Majesty took such an interest in you. Hubert, no matter. I'll dispose of you either way. Claude vs. Edelgard. Claude, say, Princess, should we get a meal together after I win, just you and me? Edelgard, Claude. You shouldn't be fighting right now. Claude, sorry to disappoint, but I've rested long enough. Edelgard, damn it, if you won't listen to reason, I'll just knock you out myself. Claude vs. Dmitri. Claude, hey, Your Highness, before we fight. Dmitri, yes, Claude? Claude, Hilda likes flowers and fashion. If you got her a dress she really likes, she'll love you forever. Claude, also a good idea are dates, especially shopping trips. Though, I'm sure you have a grip on that situation. Dmitri, what does this have to do with anything? Stop trying to distract me. Claude, seems like it worked. Claude vs. Ash. Ash, how are you holding up, Claude? Claude, not too bad, you? Ash, I'm alright, but I think I'd be a lot better if you were resting right now. Claude, hey, if you're so worried, then you mind losing to me before we go through all the effort of fighting? Ash, sorry, but I can't do that. Claude, oh darn, it was worth a shot. Claude vs. Ingrid. Ingrid, are you really going to fight? Claude, well, if I'm not, I dragged myself out of bed for nothing. Ingrid, I see. So you won't surrender, then? Claude, afraid not. You? Ingrid, I won't. Sorry about this, but I'm going to have to beat you. Claude, hey, isn't that my line? Ingrid vs. Marianne. Marianne, oh. Ingrid, the tea yesterday was lovely. Thank you for the invitation. Marianne, you liked it? Ingrid, yes, and I'd love it if we could do it again. Maybe after this battle? Marianne, why yes. I would love to. I've been meaning to tell you about Dort and the others. Ingrid, I look forward to it. Marianne vs. Casper. Marianne, I'm sorry. Casper, no, keep your head up. You're on the battlefield, so you can't be looking at your feet. Marianne, why yes. Casper, that's the spirit. Now, come on. I'll be fighting with everything I got, so give it your all, too. Marianne, all right. I will. Casper vs. Sylvain. Sylvain, well, look who it is. The little cutie in his battle armor came to see me? I'm honored. Casper, little. I'll bring you to your knees. Sylvain, I think you might have misunderstood, I'm actually interested in getting to know you. Casper, get to know the ground, you frickin' beanpole. Ignatz vs. Linhard. Ignatz, the scenery is rather beautiful, it's a shame we have to spend our time here fighting. Linhard, I agree. The open field, the trees, the running river, it's perfect for a long day outside. Ignatz, maybe if we end this quickly, we could spend some time enjoying this perfect day. Linhard, interesting hypothesis. Let's test it out right away. Lawrence vs. Ferdinand. Lawrence, I do believe we discussed the possibility of facing each other during our last chat over tea, did we not? Ferdinand, in fact, we did. And we agreed that it would be a spectacle to behold. Lawrence, shall we put on a show, then? Ferdinand, we shall. Lysithea vs. Annette. Annette, oh, there he is. Lysithea, Annette, Cyril. He's up there, watching from the cliff with Lady Rhea. Hi. Lysithea, you're waving to Cyril during a fight? Annette, he's waving back. Say hi. Lysithea, hi. Annette, okay. Let's do our best and all get candy together after. Lysithea, candy? I mean, yes. We will. Leonie vs. Dorothea. Dorothea, nice, very, very nice. Leonie, huh? Dorothea? Dorothea, I mean, you're fighting. It's nice. Like a dance. So graceful. Leonie, oh. Thanks. Leonie, this is the first time anyone's called my fighting graceful. Dorothea, so. Let me show you how I fight. Leonie, I'm looking forward to it. Raphael vs. Hubert. Raphael, let's do our best then, buddy. Hubert, what sort of tactic is this? Do you hold no fear of death? Raphael, huh? But, you can't hurt me, right? Hubert, to think so little of my power, you're either a fool or hiding your strength. Raphael, aren't you taking this mock battle thing a little too seriously? Raphael vs. Bernadetta. Raphael, alright. Seems like we're facing each other. Bernadetta, Raphael, huh? You alright? Want me to give you a piggyback ride or something after? Bernadetta, and no. I'm fine. I'm just trying to psyche myself up. Raphael, don't worry. I'm sure you'll do fine. Bernadetta, thanks. Bernadetta, wait, why are you telling me I'll do fine when I'm trying to shoot you? Edelgard vs. Hilda. Edelgard, couldn't you have kept him from fighting today? Hilda, I tried. Trust me, I tried. Edelgard. Hilda, hey, don't worry. He's strong. He won't get himself hurt again. Hilda, so quit worrying and just fight it all out, alright? Edelgard vs. Dimitri. Dimitri, so, it is time to cross blades. I have never imagined such a day would come to pass. Edelgard. Dimitri, well, it is only a mock battle. Let's have a fair, honorable fight. Edelgard, I hope you aren't too upset when I take back the victory. Chapter 29. A Feast. Princess, your kindness will never be forgotten. Claude exclaimed excitedly. Raphael was already tackling the meat, Ingrid not far behind him. And here I thought you'd be moping about your loss for the rest of the night, Edelgard teased. It's hard to stay downtrodden in the face of delicious food. Claude replied with a grin. Leonie huffed, saying something along the lines of how the Black Eagles only won because Professor Byleth was on their side, and not even that would help them the next time. Casper replied with some good-natured bragging, kicking off the start of the light-hearted chatter that had become so common during their meals together. Edelgard couldn't help but feel a bit sad about the thought of destroying it all. Dimitri, you've got some soup on your face, Hilda said, pausing from her meal. Oh? How improper of me. Dimitri muttered, before Hilda simply smiled and lifted a napkin to his face. No worries, I've got it. Hilda started to trail off as she realized just how intimate the action was. Instead of addressing this, however, she just smiled and pretended this was totally fine and normal and okay. It's all gone. She carefully and casually put the napkin back down, pretending like that never actually happened. There were so many looks exchanged at the scene. Ash and Ingrid and Claude looked at each other. Ingrid signaled Felix and Sylvain to care with her eyes. Only Sylvain looked back. Annette giggled with Lysathea and Mercedes and Cyril, the latter of whom didn't really understand what was happening. Dimitri didn't seem to realize what was happening either. He thanked her politely and kept eating, trying to forget the light feeling of her hand. Hilda laughed at his confused response, thinking it was cute. At the sound of her laugh, Dimitri froze. What was it that made her laugh so? After the feast ended, it was back to their usual routine. In the midst of training, Dimitri realized that he had been checking the door a lot. He had started to anticipate her arrival, stopped arguing with her telling him to rest. No, it was more like he had started looking forward to her showing up. Dimitri couldn't dwell on it any longer, because just then, Hilda opened the doors, a canvas bag hanging from her elbow. Dida was by her side as she stomped over. Dimitri. Dida told me that you've been here for 2 hours. Hilda exclaimed, glaring at him in a worried sort of way. Go rest. Dimitri looked from Dida to Hilda in confusion, wondering when exactly Dida had started going to Hilda to stop Dimitri from overworking himself. Hilda pulled a towel out of her bag, along with a water bottle. She gave Dimitri both of these items, before glaring up at him. I'm going to be studying in the library with Claude and Marianne and Leonie, but if Dida says you're still in here by the time we're done, I'm gonna to drag you back to your room myself. Hilda threatened. Dimitri hadn't noticed how much shorter she was compared to him until he was looking down at her angry expression. I'll do my best to finish up, then, Dimitri said. Good. Hilda exclaimed, her expression quickly turning into a grin. She left with a smile and a goodbye of, have great dreams tonight. Dimitri's chest was still heaving from his exercises as he wiped his face with the towel. Was it wrong that he almost wanted to stay just to see her once more before the day ended? As he was laying down in his bed, he realized that he had been sticking to a better sleep schedule ever since the first time she carried him off. Are you sure you want to carry all of that, Dimitri? Hilda asked. Dimitri had accompanied her on a shopping trip in town, since she wanted more materials for her accessory-making hobby. Quite naturally, Dimitri had offered to carry all of her bags. I wouldn't have offered if I was incapable of it, Dimitri replied. Is there anything else you want? Hilda pouted, crossing her arms over her chest. Dimitri, don't push yourself too hard. I might be delicate, but I can handle at least 2 of those bags. It's not heavy, Dimitri said, attempting to reassure her with a smile. Really, you're kind of too knightly sometimes. Hilda exclaimed. I kind of feel bad about it, you know? It's like I'm taking advantage of you or something. What? No, I really don't mind at all, Dimitri said. I'm grateful for the chance to spend time with you. Hilda didn't say anything for a moment, before letting out a small laugh. I like spending time with you too, Dimitri, she told him with a smile. But I still want you to be able to relax around me. Dimitri paused, wondering if there was anyone else who could give him the same sense of peace as she could. Oh. It's His Highness and Hilda, huh? The voice made them both turning to see Dorothea waving. She was going to hang out with Linhard and Casper, only to notice the pair. Hey. Hilda greeted in return. Hello, are you doing well? Dimitri asked. I'm doing just fine, Dorothea said, before noticing the bags in both of Dimitri's hands. She looked to Hilda with what seemed to be a growing amount of respect. Congratulations on your great catch. Dorothea exclaimed, winking. I'll leave you two to your date, have fun. Hilda said as Dorothea ran off. But, it's not a date. She sighed, before shrugging. Oh well, we can tell her that we're just friends afterwards, Hilda said casually. Dimitri couldn't muster a response to that, but he didn't know why. Wow. I think it's coming out great. Hilda exclaimed, showing a smile to the others in the kitchen. When it comes to baking, I'm very skilled. Mercedes said proudly. I'm really excited. Ash said, sharing in the enthusiasm. Behind the counter, several others were waiting for some sweets. Lysithea and Annette were excited for the sweets, and they had dragged Cyril into waiting for some too. He wouldn't ever admit it, but he enjoyed hanging out with the two. He would enjoy it a lot more if he didn't have to work around the monastery. Didya was there because Mercedes wanted to thank him for overseeing her attempts at cooking with some sweets. He couldn't help but smile a bit at her excitement. Felix had no idea why the hell he was there, because he hated sweets, but Ingrid would absolutely not let him escape. He wasn't staring at Ash's smile or anything, perish the thought. Stab the thought with a million knives while you're at it. Dmitri was there because Hilda invited him, since sweets could always bring someone's mood up. They're ready. The trio of bakers set out a plate for each of the waiting spectators. A sweet bun was carefully placed on each plate, waiting to be tested for taste and quality. Dmitri took a bite of his pastry, Hilda grinning at him in anticipation. Well? How is it? Hilda asked as he swallowed. It's sweet, Dmitri admitted, averting his eyes. Very sweet. Is that good or bad? Hilda asked. I think it will take some getting used to. Dmitri answered, before his eyes widened. He almost dropped the sweet bun, his other hand moving to cover his mouth instinctively. The others were staring, Didu and Hilda asking if he was all right, but Dmitri hadn't noticed it until then. Since when had he been able to taste the food he had been eating? He gulped, showing the others a calming smile. He wasn't choking to death, he assured them. Maybe it was the opposite, actually. Maybe he had some new life breathed into him. Is this the book you were searching for? Dmitri asked quietly, standing in the library with Claude. Dmitri. This is perfect. Claude said happily, taking the book from the prince's hands. Thanks a ton, Your Highness. It's nothing, really, Dmitri replied. Ha, yeah right. You actually want to do a favor for me so I can help you out in return, right? What, no. Of course not. Dmitri exclaimed, prompting Claude to laugh. Yeah, I knew it. But still, I never told you the full details of that wager I wanted to make, did I? Claude asked. Dmitri stared at Claude flatly. I think I'm fine, Dmitri said. Oh come on, at least hear me out. Claude said. I mean, I've been curious. About crests? Dmitri asked. About girls, Claude answered. Hilda in particular. Dmitri froze. Don't look so crestfallen. Claude said immediately, I don't mean it in that way. What way do you mean, then? Claude repressed the urge to laugh sinisterly. Say, I have a theory that everyone's favorite diva might have the hots for someone, Claude stated. Want to help me find out whether or not it's true? I think you'd be better off asking her yourself, Dmitri answered, ignoring the voice in his head telling him to ask who it was. Oh, you don't want to imagine her with anyone else, huh? Claude asked. Don't worry, I get that. It's hard to have a crush on someone, isn't it? See crush. Me? You. Claude repeated with a sly grin, hoping to catch Dmitri where he trailed off. Dmitri could not find an adequate answer, so he excused himself and left. As Dmitri walked, he desperately tried to reason with himself. He was just bad at telling friendships from romantic feelings, he thought. Surely, it was just because Hilda had been kind to him. There was no way he could have such feelings for her. Right? Her words and actions were bouncing around his head as he tried to make sense of everything. The memory of her smile as she thanked him. Even if you mess up a bit, people will appreciate the effort. The bracelet she had made for him, still hanging around his wrist. Lysithea really likes crescent moon tea, so I've been curious. Wanna try it together next time? Their shared confusion over vulneraries and vulnerabilities as they studied together. It's fun talking to you, so, even if it's pretty sad, I'll be okay with listening to you. How beautiful she was in the moonlight, his cloak around her shoulders. If you ever want me to be there for you, I'll be there, okay? All you have to do is ask. The sight of her smashing a frying pan in half with her bare hands. I can't have you getting into trouble without me if I can help it. Dimitri's blush somehow worsened as he remembered how strong she was, before he tried to dismiss such impure thoughts from his mind. He managed to almost make it back to his dorm room, before he spotted Hilda petting a cat with Petra. The pig-tailed girl noticed him quickly, her face brightening into a smile as she waved at him. Oh no, Dimitri thought at the sight, completely incapable of suppressing it anymore. I have feelings for Hilda. This was apparently the kind of thought that kept Dimitri awake at 3 a.m. in the morning. Look, it was not his fault that his usual nightmare programming of guilt-induced visions of everyone dying went off the rails when he was offered a hand up. The moment he took the girl's hand, he felt less powerless and scared and more calm. Like everything would be alright, as long as he kept holding that warm hand. And then his dream suddenly went from that to him covered in blood, the girl turning away from him in disgust and fear as he toppled over and into the flaming recesses of his mind. Dimitri woke up immediately afterwards, his heart pounding. He tried to remind himself that he couldn't feel anything but friendship for Hilda, because no matter what, his feelings wouldn't be returned. That she would be disgusted and angry at him for it, that he had nothing to offer her in return for staying with him. But, as guilty as he felt about it, he let himself imagine it. Being able to hold her hand, being able to tell her all the ways she was incredible, even if she didn't realize it. Being able to get her gifts she liked and make her happy, seeing her outside the academy, seeing her smile. Dimitri let himself have those sorts of fantasies until he drifted back to sleep. The next day, Professor Byleth was in the chapel, answering confessional notes. There's 5 notes in the box, the sister announced as the professor approached, before taking out the papers. They were both stunned to find that, actually, instead of being 5 separate papers, someone had stuck together 5 sheets to create what was possibly the longest question either of them had ever seen. Professor Byleth looked to the sister, who shrugged in confusion before handing it over. Professor Byleth scanned through the letter, several key phrases sticking out to them. There's a certain person I cannot banish from my thoughts recently. When they enter the room, everything seems to calm down. No, I'm the one calming down. They give me a sense of peace I haven't felt in a long time. When they smile, feelings of joy overtake me. It doesn't happen often, but when they touch me, I feel exhilarated. Happy. It's as if their hands can heal me. Thanks to them, the world feels brighter. I can forget my troubles and enjoy things I've overlooked before. Thanks to them, the world has flavor again. I beg of you. Please tell me how to banish these feelings. Byleth stared at the last line for several seconds. When the answer was posted for all to see, it became a phenomenon. Virtually everyone had gone over to read the legendary confessional love letter. Students came from all the houses, from every class. Even Professor Manuela checked it out and sobbed over the beauty of youth, a baffled Seath having to check if she was drunk or something. However, what really did it for everyone was the professor's dry response. Please just confess to them already. Chapter 30. Now, of course Hilda had to check out the legendary love letter. Of course she recognized Dimitri's handwriting from the letters they had exchanged, from the notes she had seen him write while they were studying. It's just, the letter was long, okay? And the papers provided for confessional notes were small, so the writing was pretty small too, plus, there was an entire crowd around it, so Hilda wasn't actually that close to it. Basically, Hilda had barely read it, despite recognizing that Dimitri was the writer. She absent-mindedly began to wonder who it was, despite feeling her heart sink at the idea of Dimitri liking someone else. Maybe this was all a ploy to confess to Professor Byleth. Hilda whispered. Sylvain, who had been there to sigh at his childhood friend and was next to her in the crowd, looked at her in a mix of surprise and utter confusion. You, huh? He attempted, before clearing his throat. You don't, you think Dimitri likes the professor? I mean, Professor Byleth is the one answering the letters, Hilda reasoned. Having an anonymous love letter delivered to you in such an innocent context is bound to get someone's heart pounding. Sylvain filed this away as information to hand to Ash and Ingrid later, because Goddess knew those two would use it better than Dimitri. But, anyways, Sylvain's reaction to this was a mix between, this never would have happened if Dimitri took my advice more seriously, and damn it, did he give her a dagger? Is this why she doesn't realize he has a crush on her? Because he expresses his love with daggers. Random question, Sylvain said suddenly. Do you know of Dimitri giving anyone daggers? Hilda paused, before saying, that really is random. But no, why? See, there was this one time when we were kids. Hilda had dragged Dimitri over to the greenhouse, the two wandering about the space aimlessly while the greenhouse keeper was sorting out Professor Bylotha's newest batch of seeds. Normally, it would be a quiet, peaceful moment, the two of them chatting about whatever came to mind in the comfortable space. Normally. Now, Dimitri had been trying to break his newfound habit of staring at Hilda, as there was no way that sort of longing-fueled staring would not end badly if witnessed by, say, the other members of the Golden Deer. Or the Blue Lions. And the Black Eagles. And Hilda herself. Unfortunately, Dimitri wasn't having much luck, which made his heart stop for a single moment when, in turning to look at Hilda admiring the flowers, they made eye contact. His eyes widened in shock, just as Hilda smiled at him. HRK. Ha 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 ha. And then she doubled over laughing. Dimitri had conflicted feelings in that moment. On one hand, she truly had a charming laugh and beautiful smile, and he was honored to be seeing both. On the other hand, he had no idea what was happening. Was she ill? Hilda? Are you alright? SNRK. Dimitri, I mean, it's fine. It's fine, it's totally fine. Hilda insisted, visibly holding herself back from more laughter. Are you feeling unwell? Should I escort you to the sickbay? Hilda immediately threw her head back in uproarious laughter. What a gentleman! A prince! The image of chivalry, she exclaimed, before dissolving into more cackling. How in the world did this guy wind up giving a girl a dagger as a gift? How did you know about that? Dimitri demanded in shock. Sylvain, Hilda answered immediately. Dimitri didn't know why he expected any other answer. That was years ago, all right. Please, do not take that to mean that I am always so inadequate in these matters. Hilda pressed her fist to her lips in a desperate attempt to stop herself from laughing again. She was actually beginning to tear up. Is it really that funny? Dimitri asked, dismayed. Yeah, Hilda answered bluntly. I can totally still see you giving a girl a dagger as a gift. She prompted Dimitri to look towards the section of the greenhouse devoted to flowers, smiling down at the multicolored blossoms. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are people who actually like training and all, but for me, I would totally want flowers, she exclaimed, crouching down to appreciate them from up close. I mean, they're so pretty, right? But, wouldn't it make more sense to give something useful? Dimitri asked. Hilda hummed, before spotting something interesting and beckoning him closer. Dimitri awkwardly squatted down next to her, before she plucked a single forget-me-not and stuck the light blue flower behind his ear. Cute, right? She asked with a bright smile. I suppose. Dimitri replied, having tried too hard to not blurt out something embarrassing. Hilda rolled her eyes in response. Oh, come on, you're adorable and you know it, she said. I would make you a flower crown, but I don't want to pluck too many flowers, but just one is fine, right? Dimitri didn't answer that. Instead, Hilda began to speak without thinking about it too hard. Let's see, you can use flowers to make flower crowns and other decorations, they're especially nice if you dip them in wax and spin them as they dry, but that's extra effort. You can use them to make perfumes and other scented stuff, too. Oh, and I think some flowers and other plants are edible, but I'm too sure which ones, Hilda trailed off, turning towards Dimitri. The soft light atop her pink hair, her kind smile, her slightly upturned gaze, all of it created an image that seemed designed to strike Dimitri in the heart. See? Flowers have tons of uses, she exclaimed happily. It's just that you're so focused on fighting and ruling and studying that you never take the time to appreciate them. Dimitri paused to think. Then, if I were to stop and appreciate the things around me, life, more, perhaps my burden, desire for vengeance, would be lifted, he muttered. Well, maybe your burden, royal duties, would never be completely lifted, but taking time to heal, relax, will help you, you know? Everyone needs that sense of peace, to relax from stress. But, if I were to grow too accustomed to peace, happiness, would I not be neglecting my duties, to get revenge? Well, your duties are important and all, but you always gotta keep yourself in mind, Hilda told him. Forgetting to take care of yourself is dangerous, you know? There are so many scary consequences, losing sleep, stress, etc. Dimitri's gaze went to a far-off place, as he sometimes did with Hilda. Yes. I must never forget myself, lose sight of who I am, for the consequences of descending into bloodlust are far too great. Hilda laughed. You're gonna be a great king someday, she promised. But that's in the future. For now, you don't have to be anyone but the devoted, studious, serious dude you are. Dimitri let out a short chuckle. I will keep that in mind, he said, hand reaching up to touch the flower once again. Out of curiosity, that night, Dimitri went to grab a book on the language of flowers from the library. Forget-me-not, these flowers carry the meaning of true love. As the name suggests, they are often used as gifts or decorations to ensure the recipient will not forget the giver. More of its meanings include remembrance and faithful love. Dimitri slammed the book shut. Ash and Ingrid immediately went to check on him. Dimitri had to insist that he was all right and everything was okay, all while trying to hide a single flower behind his back. Was it just him, or did Ash and Ingrid have these weird, knowing smiles? Check the description for the links to the author.